Good evening. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening for our 2020 AASL virtual membership meeting. I know you have a lot of demands on your time, and I'm really honored that you chose to spend this time with me tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And Jen Habley is running the slide deck for me, so I'm going to tell her next slide, please, when I'm ready to go to the next slide. So here we are. So welcome. What a crazy year we've had. Welcome. What a crazy year we've had. All of us have had great things happen to us this year, and yet at the same time, we've all been impacted by challenges, including the coronavirus, and most recently, the recent events in Minneapolis and the protests that are going on nationwide. And we've also had professional opportunities come our way. I've been incredibly grateful for the opportunities I've had as your president of AASL. Although this year has unfolded in unexpected ways, I'm proud of the progress we've made together, and I look forward to what's coming. This evening, we're just going to review just a few highlights from our year in AASL. And first, I'd like to introduce you to the 2019-2020 Board of Directors. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, we're just going to look at their beautiful faces. This group has served us well. They've made difficult decisions with regard to restructuring the organization, or the restructuring governance. Next slide, please. Looking at the budget, making tough choices. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. And of course, you've seen everybody, including our executive director, Sylvia Knight Norton. Let's go to the next slide. This past year, you voted on the board's recommendation to revise the bylaws and structure AASL's board of directors. Let's talk a little bit about the background behind that decision. In recent years, associations in general have reduced the size of boards to increase member engagement and streamline decision-making. The American Library Association has also been examining its organizational effectiveness and proposing structural changes to improve the association's responsiveness to its members. So, at the same time, for several years, AASL leadership has considered downsizing the board, going from a board of 19 elected leaders to a more manageable number. We wanted to change the representation model to incorporate leadership competencies rather than representing geographic regions and specialties. So these ongoing conversations led to the leadership activation goal in the current strategic plan, which we'll look at in a few minutes. So one of the objectives of this goal, to refine existing participation models, acknowledges that change can deepen and expand volunteer involvement in general. After much discussion, this was a painful decision for our board. The board voted to move forward with these changes at its meeting at ALA Annual in June 2019. We expect the new board structure to streamline governance, improve decision-making, and result in deeper member engagement on the board. And so these are your new board, this is your new board of directors elected for the year 2020 to 2021. Look at the next slide and move to looking at the strategic plan. Each AASL president has the, I'm looking at the wrong slide. We'll go to the next slide. Go ahead. I am so cheap. When I printed out my notes pages, I printed them double-sided and in micro dots. So bear with me if I stumble a little bit. So this is This is the broad outline of our strategic plan. We aim to achieve leadership activation. We want to build capacity for leadership at all levels, from the level of the school on up to the board of directors, and then leadership further in ALA in general. We want to influence local, state, and national policy. Our goal is to have well-funded, fully staffed school librarians in every school in the United States. And we want to advance research that informs school librarian practice. So we came to this after we gathered information through surveys and a working summit of about 100 AASL member leaders. And this strategic plan was refined by the board and approved last June. The plan builds on AASL's existing work and current mission statement. The American Association of School Librarians empowers leaders to transform teaching and learning, and it promotes a central vision. Every school librarian is a leader. Every learner has a school librarian. The plan champions the core values of the association. There are 5 of them, and I'll list them: learning, innovation, equity, diversity, and inclusion, intellectual freedom, and collaboration. This year, we've been working on how to operationalize these 3 larger goals into action steps that advance our objectives. Our particular challenge this year is how to move forward in uncertain times caused by the coronavirus. Therefore, the operational plan that will be presented to the board later this month projects activities for the coming year rather than for an extended time frame. Let's move on to the presidential initiative for 2020. As we said earlier, equity, diversity, and inclusion is a core value of AASL's strategic plan. And each AASL president has the privilege of working on a specific initiative of their choice. I chose to work on issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion with my presidential task force because I believe AASL needs to equip school librarians to address these issues in their schools and professional life. Nationwide, 80% of teachers are white, yet more than half of our students are people of color. So as we looked forward to this initiative, our first step was to align our work with ALA's strategic directions as developed by ALA's Office of Diversity, Literacy, and Outreach Services. And the task force used strategies recommended by ALA's Office for Diversity, Literacy, and Outreach Services to continue to expand efforts in AASL to provide a safe, respectful, and inclusive space for diverse voices and perspectives. So we settled on 2 main goals. One was to provide professional development opportunities that address issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion, such as understanding and addressing unconscious bias, power dynamics, microaggressions, white privilege, and other topics. And further, we aimed to enhance mentoring and networking activities to provide a respectful and inclusive space for diverse voices and perspectives. I'm going to go back to the previous slide. Yes, I worked with an amazing group of people who dove into this project in early July 2019. And for the first 4 months that we were together, we worked probably every other week. And I found that what I needed to do was to get out of the way because this group was on fire to make change happen. This task force advanced AASL's efforts to create welcoming spaces for all. I am deeply, deeply honored that each of these AASL members agreed to serve on this task force and work with me and educate me. They had They had and still have ambitious goals. They worked hard, and they made a big difference in a short time. It has been my deep and abiding pleasure to work with these amazing women. So let's talk about our process just a little bit. So we'll go to the next slide. So we had three main steps in our process. We had a vision, we developed action steps to get there, and then we did the work. How hard can it be, right? Well, at our first meeting, we used a protocol to imagine our future desired state. We also described current conditions and then listed action steps to move to the desired state. Now so when we described current conditions in the past tense, we uncovered some uncertainties about what and how individuals can contribute to the association. We also wondered about implicit bias and how we would work with that. But this process also affirmed that AASL had already done some really good work in equity, diversity, and inclusion. So after we did that initial work, we listed action steps as if they'd already been taken. There's an amazing amount of power in that kind of vision process. So we spoke in the past tense, and by doing that, we explicitly connected the desired future state with the present. And because we had described the future and the existing conditions in concrete terms and measurable terms, the proposed actions were clearly connected to our vision. So as I looked at this, as I was preparing this presentation, I was kind of amazed because these are three of the statements we made in July. We revised the Get Involved form. Check, we did that. We did some work with the affiliate assembly. We scheduled time in that group to work with state leaders. That's on the schedule for the chapter assemblies work later on this month. We held a town hall where we had the intense conversations about topics like microaggressions, so we could feel comfortable having conversations with our students when these subjects came up. Wow, we did all of that and more, but I'm especially proud of these that we've done. So as we had subsequent meetings, we reviewed our notes, we prioritized key ideas and action steps, and then formed small groups to collaborate between meetings. So the group worked on several fronts simultaneously: membership participation, opportunities for diversity and inclusion, pathways to leadership, and more. And due to their vision, we were able to get quite a lot accomplished. So let's take a look at our completed projects on the next slide. The Increasing Representation Program partnered school librarians of color with mentors to empower underrepresented colleagues to become fully involved as leaders in AASL through support networks. We had this idea in early August, and we moved very quickly to identify a core group of mentors and mentees so we could begin discussions at AASL National Conference in Louisville, Kentucky in November 2019. The next thing we did was office hours. We used office hours to provide an informal, safe space to ask questions and gather information on topics related to EDI. The task force prioritized offering as many opportunities as possible for school librarians to learn about these issues, because talking about race and social justice is difficult for many of us. In the December session, we discussed EDI topics in general. At the February 6th session, we started with a discussion on the #OwnVoices movement before the floor opened for questions. As we expected, the conversation was not all comfortable, as people confronted their own misconceptions and learned of other perspectives they had not considered before. We concluded in May with a powerful presentation on microaggressions presented by Casey Boyd. These sessions were not entirely without friction, and that's good. We intended to talk about difficult questions in a safe space where people could share their experiences and grow together. I mentioned earlier that we're providing training for the AASL chapter meetings, and we've also written a large number of articles, blog posts, and podcasts on this topic. So we've gotten quite a lot of work done this year, and I'm really, really pleased. I'm really proud of the movement that we've made, the changes that we've accomplished in this short time that we've worked together. And yet there's still quite a lot to be done. And I invite you to continue to prod us to continue making progress in this direction. So let's go to the next slide. And I want to bring you up to speed on the School Leader Collaborative, which is a continuation of Catherine Roots Lewis's presidential initiative of 2018-2019. We'll go to the next slide. I see Sarah Kelly John's question. Yes, there are recordings of the office hours. The recordings include the recording of the event and the transcript of the chat. And there are also some associated materials. At the February meeting, we had, thank you, Jen, for posting that link. At the February meeting, we shared some recommendations from the task force, and they include some readings that adults might wish to pursue for their own edification. So back to the School Leader Collaborative. This project has been funded by a generous grant from Overdrive Education. The School Leader Collaborative is a 2-year initiative that aims to strengthen AASL's collaboration with school administrators. This initiative champions the school librarian's integral role in teaching and learning. It has been, as I said before, it's been generously funded by Overdrive Education. We assembled a team of 7 principals and superintendents from school districts all over the U.S. who represent small, large, rural, and urban districts. These individuals had already demonstrated strong support for school libraries and school librarians through their commitment to full staffing, budgets for materials, and integration of the school library throughout the school and district. Several of these individuals are poised to lead at the state and national level, and one has already distinguished herself as a state-level advocate for school libraries. We're grateful to Overdrive Education for making it possible for us to work with and learn from this amazing group of administrators. To date, they have conducted a workshop for other administrators, which we held at the National Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and they've appeared in a video promoting school libraries. That's coming up in the next slide. Jen, let's play this great video.
I think that the librarians often serve as like kind of the heart of the school. I think that they serve as a support system to so many different people in the buildings beyond just the students. We need to make sure that people have the right mental model about what a school librarian does for school and make sure that we're fostering that in all of our schools.
All schools are a living laboratory, and librarians are kind of the head scientists. They help everyone in that petri dish of learning think more broadly and experiment.
And they have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of resource, and they're there almost as a coach, and really kind of the traditional role that many administrators kind of think in.
My school librarian and the librarians across districts in Pennsylvania are the ones who are feeding the administrators. My success as a school principal and administrator in Pennsylvania is a product of being shaped by school librarians.
The impact of the library or the librarian can only be in direct proportion to your own willingness to elevate, encourage, and empower that person or that space as a central part of the learning experience for all of your students and your staff. So if we're not willing to advocate, to put resources there, to sort of put our money where our mouth is, then you're not going to have that space be all that it can be, nor are you going to have that person have the voice and the authority and the influence that you'd like them to be.
Make sure you're listening to those unreasonable requests. And sometimes librarians might have some ideas that might be a little bit out of the box, or things that, no, there's no possible way we could do that, but those are the kinds of ideas that you should be listening to, because they're the things that are going to grow your school and ultimately impact students.
I would recommend any administrator to sit down with your media specialist, get a vision, and see how that vision matches up with your vision and mission statement for your school, and then support them financially.
Keep shining the light on the bright spots. Administrators sometimes get so busy, and they are the ones that open the door and say, come on in. And I think they need to remind us that there are a lot of bright spots in education, and they're the ones that are fueling that.
School librarians, we are glad to have you. We want you to be a part of the school, and come talk to us. Tell us what you're thinking. If we haven't reached out to you, I'm sorry, but come and reach out to us, because we want to support students, and we know that you're a critical part of every student being successful.
So thank you, Sylvia, for posting that link in the video. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. This is another product. This is another product that the School Leader Collaborative has contributed to. This matrix was developed by the President's 2008. I'm all snarled up in my words. Catherine Lewis's Presidential Task Force in 2018-2019 developed this matrix, and our School Leader Collaborative helped us polish it and refine it. It features questions arranged in a matrix of the 5 roles of the school librarian and the 6 shared foundation of the National School Library Standards. And so it's very interesting. I mean, we recommend this to be used as a hiring tool when principals and administrators are hiring new school librarians, but it's also a tool that we can use to foster our own professional development and working with other school librarians as we help each other grow in our profession. So these are just 2 of the physical products we can show you today. But the School Leader Collaborative is an ongoing project. We will continue for another year, and you can look forward to having more very targeted advocacy resources coming from them in the future. So let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about, Anne has asked for a link to the interview matrix. I'm sure Sylvia or Jen can get that for you. So enough about us. We know that most of the good work is done at the local and state level. This year, we've changed the nomenclature of our state level organizations to align with ALA's nomenclature. The former affiliate assembly is now known as the chapter meeting. Let's go to the next slide. We're pleased to welcome Mississippi as a new chapter among our affiliated chapters. And so now we have 51 state and regional chapters. Remember that the chapters are important in helping AASL stay informed of the needs that you're experiencing at the local level. And the main channel for communicating with AASL is through the chapter meetings. So let's move on to the National School Library Standards. The next slide. So the National School Library Standards, of course, you know, provide a professional focus for what we do in the school libraries. We continue to add and refine the resources available for free at standards.aasl.org. New this year, I'd like to point out crosswalks to Google's CS First coding curriculum or computer science curriculum and the next generation science standards. Crosswalks are a fantastic tool for making connections with other educators. And if you haven't looked at them in a while, we urge you to take a look at them. And these times where we have a lot of time in our own homes, we might have a little bit more latitude for studying these resources. Another resource to look at is Developing Inclusive Learners and Citizens, which was added to the standards page early this school year. This was a product developed by the ALA Emerging Leaders cohort last year. And it includes a really fantastic lessons and sessions for developing empathy for diverse learners with your students. So let's go to the next slide. In addition to these free resources, we have a growing number of publications related to the standards. I have personally inspected lessons inspired by picture books for the primary grades. I think anybody could learn how to do fantastic literature-based instruction using this book. I have not had an opportunity to look at the others, but I'm sure they are just as good. Let's go to the next slide. In addition to those, we have the Shared Foundation series, which is a dedicated study of each of the shared foundations, including lesson applications developed by many of our member librarians. One of the most intriguing things about the publication series is that it's given us opportunities to offer publication opportunities to many of our members. So let's go to the next slide. And just, oh, I did want to talk about this. So as we have been talking about so much work being done at the local level, when we launched the National School Library Standards, we also launched a past president planning grant. And these 4 associations received the planning grants to develop professional development or programs advancing the work of the National School Library Standards in their own local states. Every state is different, every condition is different across the United States, and so we're pleased to be able to provide this support. Okay, next slide. And just as a reminder, the location for standards information is standards.aasl.org. Let's go on to the next slide. Of course, the highlight of my year was the AASL National Conference. And so many people came. We had over 2,500 people attend. This was a record-breaking attendance. Carl, thank you for calling out the donors to the President's Planning Grants and been very generous support for implementation of the National School Library Standards. May I have the next slide, please? So let's take a look back at a time when we could all rub elbows and work shoulder to shoulder without fear of virus. Wow. That was fantastic, wasn't it? That was a great time. It reminds me, seeing those pictures reminds me just how much I need a haircut. This is crazy. Yeah, it is looking like a historical document. I can't wait till we can be together again, which brings me to the next slide, AASL Salt Lake City 2021. We can hope, we can dream, and we can plan. Mark your calendar. AASL 21 will take place October 21 to 23 at the Salt Palace Convention Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, I've been to Salt Lake City, and I am here to tell you it is that beautiful. It is that beautiful. And we are gearing up now for that conference. You should be looking for crowdsourced topics in the coming month, what people are saying they want to learn about. And AASL has opened its call for National Conference Committee members. So you can go, let's see, it is, I think Jen will probably put the link in the chat for me, but the link is ala.org/AASL/APP. It's an application for the National Conference Committee. And we're looking for vibrant people who just have fantastic ideas for all kinds of concurrent session programming, author programming, other kinds of events. We have changed the face-to-face requirements. Formerly, conference planning committee people had to attend both midwinter and annual. At least one of those face-to-face commitments has been removed. Next, if you don't want to be on the conference planning committee, but you want to present, concurrent sessions proposals open August 17, 2020. That's tomorrow. So go ahead and get those ideas together and start putting your proposals together. Proposals will be accepted from August 17 until December 7th. If you're not ready to present, there are other ways to volunteer. You might want to consider volunteering to review proposals. I've done that. It's really a lot of fun. They give you a set of proposals to read and a scoring criteria, and it's pretty fascinating to see what people are thinking about. Yeah, I feel like I said August. I said mid-August is tomorrow, because every day feels the same, and it might as well be tomorrow. I hope you're laughing with me. So that's Salt Lake City. It's definitely something to look forward to and plan for, and it will be a reach for us to get there. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again. But while we're still in the present, let's go to the next slide and talk about rounding out our evening together. Let's just look at how AASL has supported school librarians for the last few months as our schools shut down due to COVID-19. Now, when we did that first survey, 79% of us said, oh yeah, we're going back to school this year. So let's go to the next slide and look at the support that AASL has provided. We've done 10 town halls starting on March 24th, 2020, with a total of 1,900 registrants. That's amazing. That's almost a national conference. Knowledge Quest bloggers pivoted immediately and began posting their experiences on the front lines. We learned from them. We tested their ideas. We tried things that we hadn't thought of. We conducted 3 national surveys with 2,471 responses. The surveys showed us how you in the schools responded to the needs. All of us jumped through hoops to curate materials and make materials available for our teachers and learners. School librarians moved quickly to provide tech integration support to students and teachers. How many librarians helped kids learn how to log on to platforms for the first time, even though you taught them a million times how to log on? How many librarians helped kids with that? How many librarians helped their teachers learn how to do Screencastify and other kinds of tools to smooth their online instruction? Many, many school librarians, more than 3/4 of us, attended Zoom classes with teachers to maintain relationships with students. So many people said how much it mattered to the kids to see our faces in the classrooms. So I saw Jen comment on this. There are archives for all of these. There are transcripts and recordings of all of the town halls. So you can mine those for lots and lots of links that were provided by participants. The results of the survey links here. Jen, can you do that? That was in the email. I think Allison sent me that. So Jen's on it. So the survey links the surveys were all published in Knowledge Quest blog. Very, very interesting reading. How things changed and shifted over the 2.5-month period. I will be participating on Thursday in ALA's webinar, The Library Community Moving Forward in the New Normal. This is going to be focused on what are our strategies as we open. And we will be hearing from academic, school, and public librarians about how we're opening up and moving into the future. So you can still register for that. And I'm really excited that we have that opportunity. So Jen has just posted that. So we're going on to the last slide, which is just sort of looking ahead, and as we look at this graphic, I just want to address a couple of questions that came up today. One person asked, how is AASL addressing local education agencies that may be promoting or proposing the elimination of libraries and library programs because of COVID-19? We do know that school librarians are already making decisions for next year. They've pivoted in their purchasing plans to provide online resources in the event we get sent home again. And we are already advocating for our students' information and learning needs. Administrators tell us librarians have been critical in helping their teachers make the shift to online learning. So one of the things that we will be doing in AASL is using the data from the surveys and the town halls to confirm what administrators tell us, that school librarians are integral to teaching and learning. AASL's advocacy efforts are always ongoing. We write letters to local school boards and state boards of education. We respond immediately to and individually to specific requests for help. It's important for us to tailor advocacy efforts to the specific situation because local conditions can vary so greatly. Another question we had was, what resources does AASL have for school librarians to support their work during this time? We will be developing additional advocacy materials through the summer based on the survey data. And you will want to plan to use this information at the local level and let us know how else we can support you. If there are conversations on your school board and you want a letter of support from AASL, write to us, call us, let us help you with this. We write these letters all the time. We do not publicize them because so frequently the situation is political, and to be very open and public about what we've done may damage relationships locally. Another question came up asking what, and this came in after we had put the slide deck together, but I do want to recognize the question. The question came in asking what AASL will be doing to continue anti-racist education for our members and the school libraries and school librarians we support throughout the country. You know, my term as president is coming to an end. I do believe that the session we're providing for the school, for the chapter assembly or the chapter meeting later this month, will be anti-racist education. We hope that that will result in some work at the state level. It will fall to leaders following me to continue that work. I know there is passion for it, and I believe that we will continue to work for social justice in our world. Are there questions I need to address? I've seen a couple of questions in the chat, but I'm not sure I've addressed everything. So Jen, if there are some things is AASL considering a more robust virtual conference option, maybe running parallel to the F2F conference so that people who are still facing travel limitations can participate? Several school systems and university systems have removed all travel funding for the next academic year. We have floated ideas, I think, about this. So Sylvia says we've ended those conversations for this year, but may restart for the next school year. Yes.
I'm sorry, that was in
another question.
That was in reference to something in something else.
May we please have virtual meetings like this more often, virtual so we may all attend. I think we learned so much from running the town halls. It was fascinating to us how much interest there was and how great the attendance was. I feel like that's something that we learned from this pandemic period that we can certainly continue to apply. I do know that ALA is watching the conditions out there for conferences and scanning the horizon about what we can do. Can I say more about what anti-racist education would look like? Jennifer Gladkowski asks, can you please say more about what anti-racist education can look like? How can we embed this more explicitly? There are different platforms for doing this. I think the question needs to be considered by our incoming board and by our incoming president as she extends charges to the different committees. So Renee, thank you for that question. For that comment. Teaching tolerance. Yeah, a starting point for me was to read the books by Ta-Nehisi Coates. That was, yeah, there are lots of anti-racist resources. There are some books recommended. If you go to the AASL President's Town Hall and look at the links for the February 6th meeting, you will find some reading selections for adults. Diane, thank you for urging people to get involved. Jennifer wants to know what AASL is doing. Our leadership development chair, Catherine Roots Lewis, was very intentional in choosing candidates to represent all races on our board. That's a first step. We anticipate continuing the increasing representation mentorship program, which again will help us understand what we need to do to make people feel safe and welcome in our association. I don't like to overpromise, but those are two things that I know that we have done and will do. And of course, as I will be leadership development chair for next year's slate of officers. I will be continuing that focus on making sure we have a diverse panel of candidates running for office. Any other questions? I haven't seen the chat change in a bit, so I'm going to assume thank you. Thank you all for coming. Emily, Emily Cannell. Did you go to, can we share the link to the town hall with the book recommendations? Thank you. Emily, if you email us at aasl.ala.org, we'll make sure you have that. Thank you everyone for spending this hour with me. I am truly honored that you did come and stay with us. And thank you for your tough questions. I really, really appreciate all that you do for our learners and our schools. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic restorative summer. Thank you.